times have changed, the modalities have changed, the modalities of warfare has changed, the whole talk about nuclear has changed. Is NFU the right methodology to sit on nuclear doctrine when there are belligerent neighbors around?
Betrayed is his own ignorance, stupidity, and recklessness, and his ability to lie like a drunken sailor.
All right, let's introduce our guests. Joining me on India Connect is Lieutenant General Rakesh Sharma. He is at the General Bipin Rawat Chair of Excellence at the United Service Institution of India. Welcome to the show, General. Also with us is Peter Kuznick, Professor of History and Director of the Nuclear Studies Institute at the American University in Maryland, United States. A warm welcome to both our guests. Lieutenant General Rakesh Sharma, let me begin with you. As you're well aware, sir, Donald Trump's remarks, especially on Pakistan's alleged nuclear testing, have caused quite a flutter. While he's also named other countries in the same breath, for India, this is of particular significance. How do you view these comments, and how do you believe New Delhi is looking at this?
Okay, thank you for inviting me, Neha. First question, how does New Delhi look at it? But New Delhi has not responded as yet, so we don't know how New Delhi is looking at it. But let me put it this way, that this is a very sensitive subject, and it has been, what has come out is a great surprise. Just before meeting President Xi, President Trump gave out on Truth Social this decision about testing, and it surprised the world because there is a distaste in the world about testing globally. And his having said so, the remarks of the Energy Secretary Chris Wright are actually contrary. He says that there will be no explosive testing; it's only subcritical testing or in vitro. Third point is that President Trump has addressed the issue to the Pentagon, the War Department, which makes it that the War Department doesn't do nuclear weapon test, nuclear. They do delivery means testing. They do not do testing of the nuclear devices, which is a task given to the energy department. So no, there is a bit of confusion in the whole game. And the fourth point here is the remarks that came in now on 60 Minutes, where President Trump has said that these four countries have been testing, including Pakistan. And he said that they do dig so underground that you can't make out, and it's a minor tremors. But worldwide, the systems for seismic recording is so advanced today that you just cannot hide out if there is a test being carried out and whether there is an earthquake or a nuclear device being blown away. Today, it's very difficult to say whether Pakistan has been testing or not testing. And if Pakistan has been testing, and if we have been recording, which we should have been, all the seismic changes that have taken place as underground earthquakes or such kind of activities, and we have been able to put it across into some cogent manner, then of course we should be able to say so whether it is testing or not. But in any case, Pakistan and India have not created the kind of database that we, in the 5, 6 tests that we did, to do in vitro or in computer testing, because we did limited testing. And in case it opens out like this, it will be advantageous for India to gather more data of this kind, because this testing data is not available across the board, and we have to do testing ourselves. So if the CTBT as it is frayed, the NPT is fraying away, and if the testing starts, it was and it gathers steam with Russians and with the Chinese. Chinese will be the most advantaged in this whole game, because they stopped testing a very long time ago. In case the United States does so, Chinese will be ones that jump at it at the first go, so that they can get their weapons tested and sorted out at the earliest. So if that happens, I think it would start a race here, and we need to be prepared accordingly as things happen. But today, let me end here, Neha, that this thing is just evolving. It is just too sudden and just too, in a premature stage to now comment as to whether Pakistan was testing or not testing. Let's wait and watch as to what happens subsequently.
A wait and watch situation for India, but a situation that India will be closely monitoring nonetheless. After all, this does have serious security implications for us. You know, we will talk about the fear of a renewed arms race in just a moment. But before that, Peter Kuznick, I want to ask you two specific questions. As you know, Trump's comments have caused a flutter, but also a fair degree of consternation. He seemed to suggest that he was talking about the US resuming nuclear explosive testing. US Energy Secretary Chris Wright, in a sense, clarified later, saying, no, we're not really talking about detonations, we're talking about systems testing. So, which of the two is it, first and foremost? And second, this claim that all these countries, including Pakistan, have been carrying out tests, nuclear tests. Now, if it were really explosive tests, as the general just pointed out, wouldn't the rest of the world have detected it? Given the kind of technology that's available today, can such tests really go undetected?
No. um, Given modern seismology, we would know, everyone would know. If Pakistan was testing, India would be the first ones to know. So what Trump betrayed is his own ignorance, stupidity, and recklessness, and his ability to lie like a drunken sailor. Uh, Trump made so many errors in his statement. He said the U.S. has the biggest nuclear arsenal. Not true. He said that he ordered the Department of War, the Defense Department, to conduct the tests. The Department of Energy would be the ones who would conduct the tests if there were real tests. And he said that other countries are testing, which is not true. In fact, he also said that he ordered them to immediately begin the testing. It would probably take between 1 and 3 years before the U.S. was even ready to test, because our testing facilities have all rusted, because we haven't tested since 1992 in the United States. The thing that alarms me the most is that a man who is so ignorant, so impulsive and reckless, such a fool, is in charge of the nuclear arsenal and has the ability to end life on the planet. People should step back and think what that means. That a man like this, a buffoon, a clown, an ignoramus, a warmonger, has the ability to end life on the planet. To me, that is what's truly terrifying about what Trump said. Fortunately, the Secretary of Energy walked us back and said, we're not talking about nuclear weapons testing. We're talking about testing delivery systems, which is what Russia did. Russia just recently tested the Burevestnik cruise missile system, and they tested the Poseidon underwater drone. These are very serious major developments, but Putin signaled this back on March 1st, 2018 in his State of the Nation address. He said that the U.S. abrogated the ABM treaty back in 2002, and Russia has now brought online 5 new nuclear weapons that can or nuclear weapons systems, delivery systems, that can all circumvent U.S. missile defense. And after the recent provocations by Trump, Russia decided to go ahead with the testing and announce it. But there is we would know if Pakistan, China, Russia, North Korea were conducting underground nuclear tests like Trump said. But you can't believe what Trump says. But it is provocative, it is dangerous, it is alarming.
Well, some very strong words there from Peter Kuznick, calling Trump a clown, a fool, an ignoramus, and warmonger. Also saying that what he said is downright provocative, dangerous, and alarming. I think that it certainly is, because it's made global headlines and it's got everyone talking and wondering what the implications might be. Let me take this back to Lieutenant General Rakesh Sharma. Sir, I think both of you are on the same page that Donald Trump may not have really known what he was talking about, but the Energy Secretary has clarified that it is not detonations that were being referred to, but testing of delivery systems. However, the very fact that Trump is making these provocative remarks, he's even said the United States has the biggest and the most powerful nuclear arsenal in the world, enough to blow up the entire world 150 times. And then he says, I've told the Pentagon, even though the Pentagon is really not the agency that does it, to immediately start tests. Russia has responded by saying, we need to be careful against unilateral escalations. So, whatever the import of Donald Trump's statements and whether or not he understands what he is talking about, fact of the matter is that these provocations, as Peter Kushnick just pointed out, are downright dangerous. We already live in a very precarious world. The last thing we need is the most powerful man in the world to even suggest that he's talking about starting some sort of a nuclear arms race.
So you're right. And I absolutely agree with the analysis of Peter, saying that it will take a long time to get the systems ready for testing. And last time, 1992, when the United States had tested, there was great outcry in the United States against the testing. And it started the issue about CTBT, which came up in the 90s. Now, whether it will start an arms race, it will start an arms race. It will start a race. In the course of last 4 5 years, the word nuclear, which was a taboo among wars, have been continuing for a very long time in this century. Especially this century is a warring century, literally. So, despite that, word nuclear has been spoken of so many times in last half a decade that one gets little conscious of the fact that nuclear weapons are now being spoken of as casually as they were not spoken of earlier. So it gives right, and now this issue of testing which comes up now, it adds on to the anxiety with what the Russians have done, as was pointed out, the Poseidon and the missile, and what the others are talking. Similarly, when India did Op Sindoor, we said we hit a target which had some kind of nuclear assets and buried underground. The point is that now we are coming to an era where there has to be a serious talk globally as to what must be done to stop it. The NPT review conferences that take place every 5 years have not been able to meet any success whatsoever. The 2015 2022 conferences have been wasted away. The next NPT conference is round the corner next year in April, if I'm not wrong. And there is just no hope left to the NPT regimes the way in last year the NPT discussions have last 10 years that NPT discussions have gone across. I think there is need for some sanity in the world. If there are 40 odd countries at war today in the world, we are a warring time, and there is no conflict resolution mechanism left in the world which can get around to say anybody who feels like shifts right and start firing missiles. Is this the world that we are today? And add on to the nuclear, we are causing great amount of anxiety in the peoples of the world, and people must rise to this occasion, saying that this ought not to be done.
I think that is a very important point. So, Peter Kushnick, do you believe that, perhaps there needs to be pushback against this kind of warmongering by Donald Trump from within America? Because regardless of the nature of tests that the United States may or may not carry out, but to engage in this sort of warmongering and nuclear saber rattling at a time when you have so many conflicts going on in the world itself sends out a very dangerous signal. Certain countries may just take that as a sort of a cue and say that, all right, if the United States can do it, so can we. And also at the same time, doesn't this sort of signaling leave treaties like the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty and the Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty in smithereens, practically?
Yes, it's very dangerous, and the consequences could be horrific. We know that there are countries that are considering developing their own nuclear weapons now. In South Korea, for example, 72% of the public wants South Korea to have its own nuclear weapons. In Japan, which was previously the most anti nuclear country in the world, The former Prime Minister Ishiba said that Japan should have its own nuclear weapons. If Iran did develop a nuclear weapon, then Saudi Arabia, United Emirates, Egypt, Turkey would all develop nuclear weapons. So the world is on the verge of nuclear anarchy. It's dangerous enough as it is now with 9 nuclear powers. Do you know who it was who led the international movement against nuclear weapons in the 1950s? It was Nehru. And Nehru said the United States is run by self centered lunatics who will destroy anybody who gets in their way. It was Nehru who led the international charge against atmospheric nuclear testing, saying it could end life on the planet back in the around 1957. So India has always understood this, and we're on the verge, though, of anarchy, because if the United States did begin testing again, Russia says it would test, China says it would test, everybody. And the other point is the United States has the best, most advanced, sophisticated system of checking our nuclear weapons and arsenal without testing. So it's in America's interest for nobody to be testing because our stockpile stewardship program with supercomputers, with lasers, with x rays, knows exactly the capability of our nuclear weapons. Where if you look at Russia and China, they don't have quite the same sophisticated way. So it would be in their advantage and America's disadvantage if everybody started testing again. So that's why I'm saying that Trump is dangerously uninformed about what the reality is.
Dangerous indeed. And honestly, the United States would do well to stop being the moral police of the world. When you're going to have statements like these coming from the President of the United States of America, really, others will question the high moral ground that the US takes at every given opportunity. After all, it was the United States that imposed those punishing sanctions on India all the way back in 1998 after Pokhran II, and it took a very long time for relations between the two countries to normalize. And let's not even get started on what Trump has done to that relationship in recent months. But Lieutenant General Rakesh Sharma, let me come back to you at this point. India is one of the most responsible nuclear weapon states in the world. We have observed a long moratorium on weapon testing since 1998. We withstood international pressure that came with the sanctions and recovered from that phase. And we also have significantly a no first use policy. Now, I'm not advocating for it, but ever since Trump's remarks came out in the public domain, there are some in India who've been suggesting, well, if this is how the President of the United States is going to act, then what's holding us back? Maybe we need to take advantage, and maybe India needs to start its testing too. After all, we live in a very difficult and hostile neighborhood, right next to a country with which we had a 100-hour conflict just earlier this year. What's your take?
So, 2 points here. One is the nuclear doctrine that we have, which talks about of the NFU. Now, to that, my point is that I think the time has come. It's been 25 years since the nuclear doctrine came out, that we need to re-examine it. The times have changed, the modalities have changed, the modalities of warfare has changed, the whole talk about nuclear has changed. Is NFU the right methodology to sit on nuclear doctrine when there are belligerent neighbors around? And between 22nd of April, when Pahalgam happened, till 7th of May, when we went in, at least 10 ministers of the Pakistan government said they will use nuclear weapons. That they didn't use so is a separate issue, but they spoke about using nuclear weapons. It was an open threat to us. So maybe we need to either re-sign the NFU part of it or lay some caveats down to it, saying, okay, we adhere to NFU, but our NFU has got caveats A, B, C, D, E, which we must enunciate for the adversary to know that okay, we are peace loving, but it's not doesn't mean that we can be taken for a ride. The second part of your question is about testing. I think we are too premature at this stage, basing ourselves on a couple of statements made by President Trump, to say testing will start, and there will be a domino theory, a domino effect between, say, Iran and Saudi Arabia and UAE and many countries. They say are a screwdriver away from making a nuclear bomb. For example, Japan and South Korea, and many have actually done away with nuclear weapons, like South Africa, and they all can be. I think it is a little too premature, but it is essential for us to commence a debate as to what is required to be done, because till now, how much of computer modeling we have been able to do, and laser testing, and the X-ray systems that we have to test a nuclear weapons, that those are in the wraps, rightly so, they are with the government, and we don't know about it. But if they need to be rejuvenated or need to be redone, I think we can a debate can commence on it as to when finally it takes off. If it takes off, my doubt this nuclear testing will come, but I don't know for future. If it takes off, then we need to start debating within ourselves as to what we need to do.
Absolutely. We live in the Trump era. These are very uncertain times. Therefore, you just don't know what to expect next. Though, it is really rich coming from Donald Trump. Just months after bombing Iran and its nuclear facilities, he comes out and says, we're going to start nuclear testing again. But Peter Kushnik, Lieutenant General Rakesh Sharma makes some important points there. As you're well aware, India and Pakistan were engaged in a 4-day military conflict earlier this year. Uh, and this is a country that at the drop of a hat dangles the nuclear threat. As the Lieutenant General mentioned, not only were these threats constantly made by Pakistan to India during Operation Sindoor, subsequently you might recall that Pakistan's Army Chief Field Marshal Asim Munir, while speaking on American soil, issued a nuclear threat yet again, not just to India but to the entire world, saying if we go down, we're going to take half the world down with us. And till date, of course, there's been absolutely no condemnation of that from the Trump administration. Now, General Rakesh Sharma and many others in India are saying, well, we are a peace-loving country, we're a responsible nuclear power, but we're in a very hostile neighborhood and surrounded by some very, unpredictable elements. Therefore, maybe we need to revisit our no first use policy. What do you think about that? Even the fact that this is now being debated in India.
I think that everybody needs to have a non-first use policy. China still has one. The United States does not. The United States and NATO have a first use policy, which is very destabilizing, very, very triggering, and very dangerous. Again, we don't need nuclear weapons. India could defend itself very well against Pakistan without nuclear weapons. Pakistan is the one who needs the nuclear weapons because India is so much stronger. But we need to have, the American and Russian and other scientists have been studying nuclear winter. And what they've said is that if there's a limited nuclear war between India and Pakistan, which 100 Hiroshima-sized nuclear weapons were detonated, that would incinerate the cities, send 5 to 10 million tons of smoke and soot into the atmosphere, the stratosphere, block the sun's rays from hitting the Earth. The temperature of the Earth would plunge to freezing, and a limited nuclear war of that size could kill up to 2 billion people. But we don't have 100 nuclear weapons in the world. We've got more than 12,000. And they're not Hiroshima sized. Most are between 7 and 70 times as powerful as the Hiroshima weapon. So if there was any kind of sizable nuclear war, it would trigger a nuclear winter that would kill potentially billions of people and almost everybody. And so that's why our species has a certain kind of death instinct. And we've got to walk that back. The people in charge have got to be the ones who want to see the future and want to see our species survive, not these people with such limited understandings and who are so, provocative and easily triggered as a Donald Trump. So, And you look recently with now Trump threatening to invade Venezuela, Trump threatening to invade Nigeria, and he wants a Nobel Peace Prize. I know something about it because I nominated last year's winners, Nihon and Dankyo, the atomic bomb survivors in Japan, for last year's Nobel Peace Prize, and I was part of their delegation in Oslo. Donald Trump does not deserve a Nobel Peace Prize, but he's got to be controlled. I mean, he's got to be limited. And people like Lieutenant General Sharma have got to keep speaking out and saying, this is craziness. This is not what the world needs right now.
It is craziness. It's not what the world needs right now. And I agree with you 100%. A man who's bombed Iran, a man who has, of course, very solidly supported Israel's endless military campaign on Gaza, a man who's now threatening to invade Venezuela and Nigeria, and a man who's now talking about resuming nuclear testing, certainly does not deserve the Nobel Peace Prize that he so desperately hankers after. But really, what do these dangerous remarks from Donald Trump really mean? Could we see, in a sense, these setting off a nuclear arms race? We can only hope that good sense prevails around the world and that, well, cool heads prevail as well. On that note, Lieutenant General Rakesh Sharma and Peter Kushnick, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much to both of you for joining me on India Connect.